Hi, and welcome back to David Bowles' Human Meme. In today's podcast, we are going to discuss publishing and the parochial mind. And when I say parochial, I mean the educated, the narrow, the contextual, the thoughtful sort of mind. Now, I have been publishing and writing on and off for probably the last 30 to 35 years. So this conversation is going to be narrow in the sense that we're going to talk about everyday publishing. Publishing for people like you and for me, not big media conglomerates, just regular people trying to do the one thing that is the most important matter of our day, preserving the truth. And that is why we write, and that is why we publish. So let's start with books. Now, we have paper books, we have digital books, but the idea of the book is going to be the same for the matter of this conversation. When you write a book, you are owning the original seed, the origin of creation from which everything springs belongs to you. You own the rights, you decide how it moves forward. And I say that because books are often popular inspirations for songs, second novels, movies, TV, plays, Broadway, and owning and writing the original underlying content from which everything else blossoms from is very important, because then you can control the idea and the intent and the purpose of what you're writing. Do you know that most Broadway plays, and this is a very sad fact, are pretty much rewritten movies? A few are based on books, but if you look at the history of Broadway, you're going to see the history is a musicalization of the movie. And I have been involved in projects that do just that, and I shamelessly took the money and the accolades to do it. But as I get older, and as I have more experience, and as I reflect and reflexively look back upon my life and upon the theater, and what kind of theater do I want to have, it dismays me that Broadway is so predictable and so ugly and so barren of new ideas. That's why when you have something new that's sort of refreshing, it's a great big hit, because people want something that they haven't already seen in a movie theater. So if you're going to get into publishing a book, writing a book, top way to do it. Periodicals. Periodicals are magazines, let's say, for this conversation. Journals, literary journals, scientific entities that get published, but we're talking about magazines. Now, paper magazines have been around for a very long time, very popular, lots of advertising, but online magazines are better and easier. I started one in 1996 or so called Go Inside Magazine, one of the very first internet magazines, very successful, lots of great writers. And it's a little more complicated probably than publishing an ink and paper periodical, because you have to deal with servers and virtual bits that aren't in the same room with you. So it's a different way of thinking and learning, because you must also be a technical master and also a human wonder when it comes to understanding the human condition. It's a wonderful memetic. You can get a lot of readers, you can influence a lot of people, but you must be there early, you must be a pioneer, or you're going to be doomed when the big boys, when the media people come and stomp on you. Newspapers. Is print dead when it comes to newspapers? Yes, absolutely. We're in the dying days of the everyday delivery of a physical newspaper. Is digital ink forever? No, it can't be. Because digital ink is virtual. It really doesn't exist anywhere except in front of your eyes. So how do we preserve what we want to remember on a daily but disposable basis? We want to learn it, get the meme within us, get rid of the information. What sort of media will keep a medium forever? I don't really know the answer to that question. Maybe you do. I would say that everything is replaced and replaceable. Nothing is forever. Nothing lasts. That is the history of our world. But there is nothing more reliable when it is in operation than the human memory. And it is that memory from which everything that we know moves us forward. It's how we communicate. It's how we share ideas through our minds, through what we have chosen to remember. And in that remembering, we have assigned a value. Blogs. Again, I was an early pioneer in blogs. Lots of fun. Around 2005, 2006, heavy into bowlesblogs.com. Blogs were, we thought, a generational replacement for the periodical and the newspaper, and they were starting to get there. And then the land rush happened, and all the pioneer publishers and authors, who were a very tight-knit, well-known group to each other, were replaced. Not really replaced, but put over. I mean, their shadow overcame our substance. And ink and paper became kind of more interesting if you were a blog publisher, because once the big boys came in, sucked up all the advertising dollar if you were selling your space, the little publisher was pushed out. Focus was lost in the overwhelming melee. Great publishers, great minds, great voices either gave it up, went to work for the big media companies, or they tried to keep going in the best way they knew how, into the everyday, into the online, knowing that nothing lasts forever, and things tend to turn around, and things tend to spin upward instead of downward, if you're just patient enough. And that's kind of what I've done with my blog. We don't publish as much as we used to, but we still publish. We're still there. The resources there. The articles are there. The preserved in amber thought is still there for the discovery. Now, and we hope forever, but we know it won't be forever. Now, a simple website is another great way to get into publishing, to preserve the truth, to prove what you know, to have your facts come forward. They are a great value. You can get a great website for pretty much no cost these days. But you have to realize you also really no longer own your own meme, your own memetic, your own idea. I argue Google does. Because if Google doesn't know about you and Google doesn't index you, you're nothing. You don't exist in the virtual world. And if you want to keep playing, you better play along. When Google tells you to get your website mobile ready, you better get mobile ready or you're going to not be found in a Google search. So I suggest if you're interested in doing a website, don't code it yourself. Go someplace, pay somebody a little bit of money, a service, a hosting service, a little bit of money. Let them worry about all the technical side of what you're trying to do so you don't get lost in the technical details of trying to keep up with the whims of the search engines. Podcasts. They've been around for a while. I just got into this podcast in the year 2016 just because, honestly, I missed my old radio days. And I realized in an interesting way that podcasts are radio for everyone. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. You don't have to get a CV or a resume. You can sit down, say, I intend to do this. And if people are interested, then you continue. And if people aren't interested, you continue anyway, because there might be a person unborn who is going to be interested in what you're saying today. Distribution, I've learned, in podcasts is vital. You have to have people subscribe to you. That means they have to actively go out, find where your podcast is, follow, save it, subscribe. That's asking a lot from people. It's not like you can just give them a website and they go read what you wrote. They have to come to you and want to know what you have to say. So sustainability is an issue. If you aren't publishing something like every 30 days or so, you'll be dropped by many of these podcast websites that promote you. And you think 30 days is nothing, but, as time and tide moves you along, 30 days can be challenging for some people. And podcast is also time exhaustive in that if you're going to write an article, you can write 1,000 words in 10 minutes, maybe. But if you're going to do a 10-minute podcast, it's going to take you 10 minutes. Social media. I didn't know if we should discuss this topic or not because really it's a big Megillah that we should really talk about in a different sort of way later, and maybe we will, but I'll mention it now. Social media is an interesting form of publication that is temporary, even though it pretends to be slightly permanent. But the problem with all social media are angry people who happen to be anonymous, don't use their real name, trolls, we call them. They are openly angry and aggressive and hateful. And if you're a right person on the internet of social media, trying to get along, learn things, make connections with people, be memetic, where can you hide from these people who throw hate at you? And the answer is you can't. So you either have to disconnect or hope that they're removed from your life in some proper way by the authorities running the service that you're trying to promote. There is no common denominator for grace. So you might expect the best of people, but that doesn't mean they intend to behave that way. So what I tend to do on social media is to read a lot, observe. I interact with people who decide to interact with me, but I tend to be a little shy and a little more reserved when it comes to me reaching out to people, because you never know when you reach out what you're going to touch and what's going to touch you back. So if social media is the new way of our world, then we are all in for a row of trouble. Anonymity, I argue, is the father of betrayal. Now, as we reflect and reflexively think about what we have been talking about today, I can't help but wondering a bit about the future. And this is how I see our future and its publishing and the human experience and our bodies and our minds all intertwined together into a single thing. And this is what I believe it will look like, feel like, and taste like. And I invite anyone and everyone to steal this idea and make it real. Just refer back to this podcast, please. The future of our interaction with ourselves and with each other will be a piece of string you manipulate. A thread, that small, that tiny, that thin. You can form that thread into a circle, and you get a broadcast movie you can watch. You can take that thread and crumple it all up between your fingers and stick it in your ear, and you have an inner headset where you can listen to music. You stretch it thin between your fingers to make a phone call. Wind it around a finger to give a blood sample, test your heartbeat, give a DNA identification. You can put it in your mouth and suck on it for a little bit and get your evening feeding. So to use something, it cannot be invisible, but it must be ubiquitous. As I've said before to you in other moments, in other podcasts in this series, technology replaces technology. But as I say to you for the first time today, genius has no followers. I appreciate your time. Thank you, and be a human meme.